Welcome back. Today I'm talking to Kevin Klein. Am I saying that right?
It's pronounced Claire, but apparently
Claire.
in proper German, it's pronounced Claire. But I'd
Ooh,
say Claire.
beautiful. Claire. That's beautiful, and I love it. I love all those letters together.
Yeah. Because obviously my mum was a Polish refugee. Well, she's still alive. My dad was German. Um, so in his accent, he'd explain to me it's pronounced Claire, as in Claire water. So then you sort of do a think, go, oh, clear, clear.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So do you speak German?
No, because the German side of the family stayed in Germany. Dad
Oh,
left Germany to see the world in his early teen years and only returned late in his life and visited his parents' graves. So I only met my German grandfather once when I was very young and never met my German grandmother, but did meet my Uncle Hans. Even went to Berlin and met my Auntie Edeltraud and my cousins Martina and the other one, the other one, uh, Thomas. But all the Polish family were here. My babcia, my jaju. So we made pierogi. We, did all that, and they didn't really mention much about the war until I
we
went to
don't talk about the war, right?
get my Polish passport. Yeah. They fled.
But you write sort of out of this world with your sort of science fiction romance elements. Looking at your books right now, actually, I should share them for those of us who are watching on video.
Oh,
But do you want to talk about your books a little bit?
just briefly. I'm published. All my books, all my novels and novellas and an audiobook are published by Nine Star Press, a
Oh
queer
wow.
traditional publisher in Albuquerque. Um, and and pretty much there are two romance novellas which you can also buy in a print edition called Nate and the New Yorker and Nate's Last Tango. There is
Love
a
those
dystopian
covers.
series. Oh, look, the cover designer we have, she's left now. Her name's Natasha Snow. She did
Hmm.
pretty much all those covers but one. And what she did for the Midnight Man and Winter Masquerade is just utterly beautiful.
Oh
Yeah, they're the
yeah, those
ones.
are
Yeah, you can
gorgeous.
see those two
Yeah.
there. They are gorgeous. She is a true artist. But a lot of my other books, besides the two dystopian ones there, you see Social Media Central and Virtual Insanity. Um, most of my books are kind of urban fantasy or magic realism or fantasy. Like, say, for example, The Midnight Man is about a middle-aged man who meets um, the man of his dreams, literally in his dreams. But it's
Yeah,
not,
I love
it's
that
part
tagline.
romance.
That is like the
Yeah,
best tagline
but it's not,
ever.
people think it's a, yeah. And basically it's really a book that explores aging and what it means to get older because the guy he meets in his dreams is younger, but each time they meet, Stan himself is 5 years younger. So he relives his own life, looking back at his life, and it also explores the disintegration of his actual real life relationship. So while sounds like romance, I don't really write romance, except for the two Nate and Cameron books. Oh yes, that one won an award. I won a couple of
Yes.
awards actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to remember you've got a video audience and a podcast audience, and I'm looking at what you've got
Yeah.
up on the screen. I realise
Yeah,
the
there's both.
podcast
There's
audience
both.
don't
Yeah.
don't see that.
No, they
Yeah, so
don't
so
see it.
just
Yeah.
quickly, it won the 2021 Gay Scribe Award for Best Fantasy Fiction, and it also won in the LGBT category for the 2021 Paranormal Romance Guild Reviewers' Choice Awards.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's quite a few books there. There's the Actors and Angels series, which in the first book, two friends find themselves in the afterlife in the theatre district and have no memory how they died, and also can't quite remember if they ever became lovers beyond friends. So yeah, that's the type of fiction I write.
I love it. I gotta share with you. We've known each other a little bit, sort of on the brinks of
Yep.
social media, but we haven't had a real chance to like delve into who we are. So, I I've always said I hated romance. I've always been like anti-romance and like never a romantic person, and that he's pointing at himself. He's pointing at himself.
Mm,
And last year, so I should go further back. So in a couple of years ago, I came out as asexual. And last year, I decided I was going to write an asexual romance. And I was going to write it. And I was
yeah.
going to give myself a month, NaNoWriMo, and I was going to write it. And oh my goodness, did I not just have the most fun ever? It was so much fun. And I said to my girlfriend
It,
who loves romance, oh, it was so much fun. This is insane. Like, I'm the girl that hates romance, and I just wrote a romantic comedy. Like, granted, it's asexual, but, everybody's like to kind of focus in on this asexual character. Her perception is that everybody's just like having sex all the time, and it's driving her crazy. So I had to write that, and it was just so much fun. And my friend said, every single romantic comedy novel and every single romantic comedy movie that I have ever loved, you have recommended. And I went, oh, so maybe I don't hate it as much as I think I do. Maybe I
yeah,
just
I
it's
think
kind of like a
that's
bad rap in my head.
yeah, I think that's an Australian point of view though. Um, I when I wrote Nate and the New Yorker and Nate's Last Tango, and even with I had just binged again, like I'd seen them when they were first broadcast, all of Sex and the City, and to me they're about romance, but it's not what the romance formula is. And more recently, for a project I've slipped out of, but I was going to be part of, I read uh, uh, Gwen Hayes's Romancing the Beat, the four-act structure into writing a proper romance book that sells. And I did a cheat sheet of it, and one day I do want to go back to it. Whether I write a romance out of it or use it as the template for the romance part of the larger novel I may be writing is yet to be seen. But at least I've got the elements. I know how it's done. I've just got to create a killer storyline within that plot structure.
I love is relationships. So I've always loved buddy cop dramas. I've always loved friendship stories. I grew up on like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and all these kind of stories about groups of friends. And I think what I love is, first of all, a little bit of humor, a little bit of lightheartedness, and this
Yeah,
idea of people connecting. And I classify that as women's fiction. It's like if it's about relationships, then it's women's fiction, But I'm not sure that that's fair. I don't think that that
for,
is a good way to tell it.
for me, I have a theatre background, so I grew up a lot like seeing a lot of plays, performing in plays. So human relationships interest me, not necessarily love stories. And there was a point, this is an aside, this is not what I was going to say, but it dawned on me when I was going through all my books, all of them contain some sort of love story, which is fine. It drives the narrative, it helps drive the narrative, even if it's not the main narrative of the stories, especially the dystopian novels. Um, and how they end, if they end with a happily ever after or a happy for now, or just the character deciding to stay single and, you know, gaining strength from that. That's what I'm more into. And the thing I found when I started is my first novel is Drama Queens with Love Scenes, the one I said where the two friends show up, dead in the afterlife. Can't remember how they got there. You don't know how they died, etc., and then try to work out if they were ever lovers. Um, I just termed that a romance. And in Australia, like, romance is starting to build in the understanding of what the romance formula has started, but it's not where we were or how we thought of novels and books. So I was at a, a writers' festival in New Orleans, and I was just popped on the romance panel, thinking, oh yeah, I've written a love story. That's what romance is. Blah blah blah. And as I don't remember the question that was asked, but I just said, oh, I didn't think of it as a romance. I just wrote a book, and this woman from a publishing house was, I could still see her standing up way down in the back seat, almost chastising me. It's like, but don't put yourself up as a romance author if you're not a real romance author. I'm just thinking, I've never thought about it. I just thought, to me, drama queens with love scenes is a romance. It's later on I learned that it's not necessarily a romance, but as an Australian, it's not where our heads were at, 11 years ago when that book was released.
No, I think my husband has a bookshop, and we struggle with sections. Like, it's really easy. It's crime, goes in the
Yeah,
crime, real easy. If it's speculative, it goes in the speculative section. If it's a classic, classics, easy. Then we have like historical fiction, and we have like women's fiction, we have general fiction, and then we have like romance. And even within those very, boxy labels, they don't, they, there's like, the books don't, there's nothing that make them go. I'm waving my hands back and forth because I don't know where the words are for those of you listening. Um,
uh,
like,
uh,
it's
yeah,
just so hard to label those
yeah,
books.
because to me, obviously from a theatre background, I also am a film buff, and
Yeah.
generally rules with film, they don't really worry about genre too much. The whole idea
Mm-mm.
is often to break genres and combine genres. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
way I approach my book writing. I'm a bit more like like I said, my first novel was released 11 years ago, but now I'm more aware of thinking of ideas that are marketable and thinking of book genre. And thankfully, we can say something's just speculative fiction now, which, just open up the doors to things that aren't necessarily what we think they are. Um, you know, one one size fits all description
Yeah,
is
it's
probably a
easy. It's
life-saving.
easy.
Yeah,
I also love the Australia
yeah.
section. It's like, okay, it was written in Australia by an Australian, goes in the Australian section. It doesn't matter. Like,
Oh, makes it easy. Thank you for sticking with us this far. You are obviously very serious about getting published. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a single episode of the Publishing Path podcast.
thank you. This whole bookstop shop section thing is very problematic. Because I think that, yeah, unless it's a crime novel where, like a
Yeah,
cops and robbers, or it's a um speculative fiction, where to put it on the bookshelf is really hard. Unless you're, saying, well, it was written, because I mean, like, even there are some books that branch historical fiction with contemporary by jumping timelines. Like, is it historical,
yeah.
or is it like, it's so hard to label, and I actually like that. Like, do we like? I mean, it's important to be able to find books, but but do we have to label them so much and narrow them down?
I, I think it's and because my publisher's American and I've always just to be clear, my first novel was originally published by a different American publisher. Then it moved to another American publisher who sadly folded, and now it's with another American publisher. And I think it's not a thing we do in Australia, but we're starting to, because we tend to follow American trends, good or bad, all the time. But I don't think it's something we really do because speculative fiction, your fantasy and science fiction genres are still more popular in the US. They're slowly making gains here, but we have a more literary way of looking at books. And as you said, there's a reason why I'm not really into romance, although I have read several really good romance books, and others I've just gone, uh, uh, not interesting, not interesting. Dilemma is posed, and it's not a real dilemma anyway. But this person is beating themselves up about it, or stuff like that. It's like, but then I can turn around and watch something like Bridgerton, especially the last series, and go, that's a romance. Every storyline, no matter how minor or major it is, has a follow through about if you just keep up appearances, you're going to make yourself unhappy. And it's reflected in every story and sub story in that. Yeah, that's the kind of romance I want to write if I write a romance, you know. Um,
Mhm.
but I think in Australia, and it's caught me and another fellow author friend, um, Reb. I've just forgotten Reb's surname. Isn't it terrible? And I've done so much stuff with her. Uh, she's also got things published with the same publisher as me. And early on, like we were joking, it's like, oh, what, we're supposed to write vampire stories or what? Just laughing about it, and added that to an email to the woman who runs the publishing house, and just assuming she'd make a funny comment back. She never replied, and I'm thinking, oh, that's right, yeah, okay, that's a real wake up call. Americans want things to be categorized and not jump out of that box when it comes to books.
So do you think that's a good thing? Or do you think that it's better to be a little more like you think about a Canadian author, Margaret Atwood, who has written historical fiction. She's written, think about Alias Grace, and then
Yeah.
she's written speculative fiction like the Mad Adams series and Handmaid's Tale. Um, and then she's written more contemporary stuff. And then she's written whatever Blind Assassin is.
Yeah.
like,
I,
Neil Gaiman's another,
I,
writes
I,
all over the place.
yeah. But I think if you've made it, and this is something I've learnt, if you made it in a big way, you can start doing that because your readership will come with you.
Hmm.
One thing I've found, I said I had two dystopian novels, Social Media Central and Virtual Insanity. My other stuff is easier to market because that's what I've become known for, and trying to break into promoting science fiction is a lot harder for me. I've got ideas for the third in the series. They're called the Taylor because that's the main
Hmm.
character. Um, but I know there's no commercial value at this point in time to writing that third book because they don't sell as well as all the stuff I'm actually known for. And to give you another example, when Virtual Insanity, the second in the series, came out, I got this really great offer from this blogger who has a huge readership who loves science fiction. And he sent me the list of interview questions to answer just to put up on the blog. He never is, and that book came out probably a year or 2 years ago. He's never published it. Then he also chased me up, wanting to do what we're doing here, a video chat and a
Yeah.
podcast, and never followed through. And I was like, you would have been such a great help to help me market these two
Too
dystopian
bad.
books, but you don't. There was even a time. I had a hernia operation earlier this year, and
Hmm.
at one stage I gave him times. I said, "But I'm having a hernia operation on this date." Oh no, I said my hernia operation has been moved because they wouldn't operate in December because I had COVID in November. So they put it off. And he wrote back saying, "Oh, I hope you didn't move your hernia operation just for an interview." And straight away I knew he's not serious about this. You know, obviously I didn't move my hernia operation because I'm desperate for this interview. But his response made me go, no, this is a bit like the blog, the question and answer blog that's already written that you haven't posted yet. Um, so I think, one day if I'm as big as Margaret Atwood or whatever, I don't, I will be even one. And another example of that, I've got preliminary notes for a space opera I want to write, which includes a love story that I want to do in the traditional romance genre way, along with everything else that's happening within this space opera. But that's been put on hold because it's not what I'm known for, and it's harder for me to sell that being in the indie, the shallow end of the author pool.
Yeah, I was talking to my mentor last week, and she was with me when I was writing this sort of YA adventure stories with absolutely no romance at all. Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
now I'm writing these romantic comedies, and they're contemporary, and there's no fantasy at all. And she's like, "Okay, what happened?" And she's like, do you have more of these books? Like, are you going to jump genres again? Because publishers aren't, well, they're going to want you to stay in your pool. They're not going to want you to jump into somebody else's pool. They'll want you to stay there. Are you going to be able to stay
Y-
there?
y-
And I'd already thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, I like this is I'm having fun. I'm not saying I'll never write a fantasy YA again, but I'm having a lot of fun. And it's been really great to play in this area. But it is something that I've had the luxury, because I've been trying to get published for so long, of thinking about these things. Like, if this book gets published, am I going to want to write 5 more like it? Or 10
Well,
more like it?
a friend of mine who is a well-known Australian author, she's a big Australian author. She started with a series of 4 romance novels to get known. So in a way, it's not a bad idea because romance sells the most. Um, I as I said before, I actually slipped out of a larger project where I had to write a romance. Um, Not because and in my head it was a good idea to gain a larger audience to then discover my back catalogue. Uh, but I dropped out for other personal reasons. And what I'm working on now, the 2 works in progress I've got now, I've been working on for a while, are more contemporary fiction. They don't have the urban fantasy elements of most of my well-known work, but they still have the depths of friendships and, exploring the human condition as my other books do. Because I just wanted to, and the interesting thing is one of them, which is called Tin Men and Scarecrows, started with me putting urban fantasy elements in it, and then I just went, no, I'm stripping them out. I'm stripping them right out. There's only one scene that starts becoming a bit surreal and fantastical, and it's okay in that scene. But it's just something that I've just thought, just for me personally, I'm moving on to the next thing, but not jumping so far that I'm not taking my audience with me. Oh, and
I
excuse this
think that,
plane
yeah.
going past. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, this has got pretty good sound cancellation.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
But the um like, how do you balance that? What your audience expects and what you want to write? How do you balance that? How do you find
I,
that?
I, I yeah, yeah, I got a really, a shock basically, uh, with this. What made me decide to drop the space opera, even though, the characters are drawn out and I've got the plot line drawn out, ready to go, is, um, obviously with an American publisher, I have an American audience, but I also have gained an Australian audience over the last few years, and both look at my work differently. So when the second of my dystopian series came out, Virtual Insanity, with the Australians, it got good reviews. A reviewer who always reviews my work for a queer novel blog didn't like Virtual Insanity at all, and even referenced other books of mine, explaining why she preferred them better because she had reviewed them, and why Virtual Insanity for her just did not work. It's the only bad review I got of that book, but I have to remember that, um, I have this split audience now, and if I keep doing my, you know, study the human psyche books, I will take them with me. I could do more of the dystopian stuff because I do get reviewed in Australia favourably, but at the moment, it's not what's making me the most money.
So, how did
One
you
day I
end up
hope it
getting
does.
published in the United States? How did that come about? Were you there at the time, or?
Basic. Oh God, no, 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 no. It's just there's more. There's more publishers in the US, and when we're talking about 11 years ago, it's not like now where there is a lot of new publishers who are taking advantage of the print on demand option. What had happened, I had originally Drama Queens with Love Scenes. It was originally called Staging Life, and I'd worked on it for a few years and had it professionally assessed a couple of times, and then was ready to start sending it to publishers. And of course, rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection.
Yeah.
Um, a little, a little indie British company started up that allowed you to self-publish through them. Now, I originally did, but then 2 months later, one of the publishers I approached, based in Boston, came back to me and said, "We'd love to publish this work." And it was a Sunday afternoon. I don't normally look at my emails on a Sunday afternoon, but I was alone at home, and I won't. I spoke out loud. I actually said the F word and went, "F yeah," and went. I didn't type that, but I was like, yes, please." So quickly got in touch with the British outfit and cancelled my book being available through them. And a year later, worked with my favourite editor of all time, who sadly passed away before the book was released. But she really made me rework that novel. Seriously, rework that novel. She really brought home what show don't tell means. And as I was doing these rewrites, I was thinking, oh, I don't, this is not as good as the original, as what as the draft I gave them. And then when it was finished, I read it and went, wow, it's so much better. The only thing I don't like about Drama Queens with Love Scenes is, for whatever reason, when they were ready to publish it, and the editor wrote an email to the editor in chief, who then wrote a nasty email to me saying, "You call this an erotic novel? If this doesn't have any sex in it, blah blah, it'll never see the light of day." And I'm scratching my head going, I wrote a book about two friends who end up in the theatre district of the afterlife. How did someone think that was an erotic novel? And you sort of think it's Boston, it's America, they're just assuming it's got gay characters, it's an erotic book. And I explained, look, I didn't write an erotic novel. Are you thinking I'm someone else? So my editor wanted 3 sex scenes in it, and I did my one refuse. It's but it doesn't need sex scenes. Um, and because it was my first publishing contract, I argued once, but then I just caved in because it's my first publishing
Yeah.
contract. I don't want to be the difficult author who suddenly loses a publishing
Yeah.
contract. So I wrote 3 sex scenes. I even had to introduce a new character for my main character to have sex with. And to this day, I still don't like the fact that those sex scenes are there, because they offer nothing to the story. But when it came time for the book to be published again through my current publisher, I had moved into a high pressure role at work. So I had no time to unstitch these scenes out, because it's more than unstitching the scenes out. You then have to go through the whole novel and see if those sex scenes were referenced in any way. And it's I just had no time. I had a workload that was up here, so I just had to say, no, take it as is. And therefore they have sex scenes in them.
So you said that the editor you worked with was your favorite of your life, and that she really made it clear what that show don't tell is. That is a huge question that everybody wants to know. So can you share the insights of the show don't tell aha moment?
A good way to explain it, let's say you were trying to explain the daggy dress a character is wearing. You don't give the type of pattern or the colours or whatever. You just say the pattern was reminiscent of my grandmother's old curtains. Because the thing with show don't tell is the more you give hints for the reader to create their own version of your book in their head, the more invested they're going to be. But if I tell you that the what the curtains look like and all that, the reader starts skimming and getting bored. So you can say things like introduce a character having the demeanor of a protective older brother, and everyone's got their own version of that. Even if they don't have a protective older brother, they know a protective older brother. And another one from one of my novels is from Social Media Central. Ahead of us, our shadows extended like anorexic giants, gazing ahead and keeping us safe. So it's just a fancy way of saying, we were keeping watch ahead, but attributing to these long shadows in front of us that give us some idea of the light, and it sounds menacing, and all that provides a mood for the reader to imagine. And that's basically the reason you show don't tell. You don't. Once you start telling what someone's wearing, what they look like, give us the essence of a person or the essence of a room, but don't tell us in detail. Let the reader imagine it for themselves.
That is fantastic. I love that because I'm definitely the skimmer when things get too bogged down, and I get accused by my editor a lot of leaving out a lot of those details. Like, okay, come on, what'd she look like? I'm like, oh, I don't care what she looks like.
It's
Can we just do the story?
it's interesting, yeah, because Stephen King apparently doesn't do it either, and I prefer with my main characters I give some idea, not necessarily physical characteristics, but like I said about the Big Brother example then. But what I like at the moment, I'm part of a writers group, and each of the people in the writers group have their own particular strength. But one of them, because he writes short stories, what his strength is, he looks, when we bring in a chapter, he'll look at the chapter as a self-contained story, which is great. Like, does it work as a chapter by itself? but he also is the person who wants those details. And you know, I sort of think it's not necessary, but he wants. What did the receptionist at this extras agency look like? And I think I'm showing what her reactions are, what her personality is. Is it important to show what she looks like? Let the reader imagine for themselves.
I love that. Yeah. It is a balance. It is a balance. And every writer has their own style and every reader has their own preference and it is a hard thing to navigate, especially as an not yet published writer because like you say, like when you were first published, you're like you push back a little bit, but then you're like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Please don't make me out to be like the annoying new writer who thinks they know better than all the experts, and I don't want to be that person. I'm not that person. I'm teachable. I'll learn, and
Yeah,
then you end up with something that doesn't look like yours. That breaks my heart.
yeah,
Please, like
yeah.
we need the author's cut.
In Drama Queens with Love Scenes, I had a description of a room, but after my editor had a go at me, it just changed to, in renovation terms, it was grandmother meets gay boy. Its welcoming decor could include a cultured old woman working on a crossword with her grandson seated next to her, checking out male models in Cosmopolitan. So I don't tell you what the room looks like at all. There's no description. It's just you imagining it for yourself what that room would look like.
Yeah, and that's one great thing about writing in the real world. When I was writing in a fantasy world, as opposed to what does it look like inside a dwarf house? Oh dear, now I have to like actually describe that.
You, but you can. But again, you can show, don't tell,
Yeah.
and give hints for the reader to make it up for themselves.
Yeah, so I love that because I much prefer relying on your reader, and that's what's great about books in a different way than a play or a movie.
You know the film Risky Business? That beautiful scene when the escort girl arrives and you see the doors up. They're starting to kiss in the corner and she's naked, but the door opens and all these autumn leaves flow in, and then the camera pans to a whole bunch of photos showing Joel, Tom Cruise's character, as a little boy, and just this thing of he's losing his virginity, and here he is as a little boy, but we don't need to show you the rest of the sex scene.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. And in that way, I finally started embracing writing sex scenes, but it took a long time
No, it's
because I could
so
think of other ways to describe them. Like I said, I avoided sex scenes completely, except for that first time I was made to. But
mhm.
I've come to embrace them because of those various points. It's about what's happening in the person's head at this moment more than what's happening downstairs. And with uh, with my novel, The Midnight Man, it actually starts with a sex scene that I didn't think of as a sex scene, because the whole purpose of that scene is to show you how unhappy Stan is in his real life relationship. And two things happened. Uh, for some reason, I had this bad review of Social Media Central who was complaining about the sex scenes and how badly written they were. And I'm thinking, but there are no sex scenes in the book. There's no sex scenes. And what is she referring to? And she mentions, because American publisher, you have to put all sorts of trigger warnings, which I find ridiculous, which we don't do in Australia, including if there's sex scenes. And I'm opening the book, going, "There's no sex scenes. It's not even mentioned. Where's she getting this from?" And so my editor at one stage, when I got the proofs for The Midnight Man, sex scenes was put in there, and I'm typing this email to her saying, "Oh, look, Liz, for some reason, it must have been put in advanced review copy for some of my other books, but there are no sex scenes in The Midnight Man. By the way, in the opening chapter, can we just change these few words? And I'm realizing, hold on a second, that opening scene is a sex scene. I don't think of it as a sex scene, but it is actually. And then I did this thing where I read it live in a YouTube writers conference that anyone could watch live, and the videos are still there. And as I'm reading it, I'm watching all the other faces of my fellow authors, like almost have this, shock look on their face. Oh my God, that's the scene. That's the scene. And I'm reading it thinking, oh yes, I guess it is a sex scene, but I just don't think of it as a sex scene, because Stan's miserable in this scene.
Funny. That is so funny. So when I had my asexual romance edited, and my editor um got real because my main character, she's had sex before, but she didn't like it. It wasn't good, and she wasn't really even sure it happened. So poor guy. She wasn't really sure that was like, came away like, did that just happen? Like, did we just have sex? I'm not sure. Not drunk or anything, just unclear. And she, that's kind of how it's described, except she says, so that's kind of when I decided that it really wasn't for me because it just takes up some time where I could be doing something else and it smells bad. And my editor's like, Paul, I have to go tell my husband I can never have sex with him again. Like, why did you have to say that? Why did you have to say it smells bad? Like, well, it does. Sorry. And
Yeah.
and oh my goodness, she's like, please take it out. I'm like, no, I'm not taking it out. First of all, it made you laugh, made you react. Not taking it out, and it does. I'm standing by it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, stand by it. Stand by
But yeah, like but like when I wrote it, I didn't think it was funny. I just thought it was factual. I was just like,
it. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is a good reason. Like, like I could be reading a book. I could be reading a good book right now, and it would, I wouldn't be wondering whether or not I did. Sorry, that was maybe an overshare.
No, no, no. Look, well, I might as well share this
Not you, me,
now
and
in my
105
writers
closest friends.
look in my writers group. I'm the only gay member. All the other members are male and are older than me, and I'm not necessarily young, but they're older than me. One actually comes in with a hearing aid. And but one other one is younger than me, and I've been fine reading the scenes in my current work that are sexual in nature, even though um, maybe sex doesn't eventuate for some reason. But there is a gay sex scene coming up, and yeah, and there are phrases like these are um, friends who like they know each other and they have sex, and there's these references to you have to allow your freak to shine with people and they're going to have to get to know your orgasm phase. They're going to have to, you're oversharing more, which is easier with perfect strangers than it is with friends you've already got a relationship with. But there are some moments that are graphic, but and all I'm thinking, and they're not like paragraphs and paragraphs because now that I'm embracing sex scenes, that's not what I'm interested in. Sorry, there's something buzzing around, so I'm shooing it away.
Australia.
Um, there may be a line or a line here and there, and I go, okay, that's a bit graphic, and I'm going to read it to three men, straight men that are older than me, and I'm already imagining myself reading these and saying, "Look, sorry guys, and it's only like 3 separate lines or 4 separate lines, you know, while this guy is you're in this guy's head going, these are friends of mine, and now they're, what's my role in this? you know, how did we get here? Um, but yeah, yeah. So in a few weeks I'll be reading that
I'm
seed.
envious that you are aware because when I hand over my writing, I am not aware because I don't think about things the same way as other people, being asexual. So for me, it's like it's just, whatever. It's just another sentence. And then, she comes back and like, oh my goodness, like my eyes are burning out of my head. Stop it. What are you doing to me? And I'm like, what? Like, what's the problem? I don't get it. At all.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just, yeah. So I'm envious that you're going in knowing it's going to be uncomfortable because I usually go into these things, I'll read it or share it, and then everybody gets uncomfortable. And I'm like, what? Oh, sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. I like that. I
Yes,
like that.
exactly that. Like laughing at a funeral, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't laughed at a funeral, but I have got the giggles at a wedding once. Um, so it's got nothing to do with book writing, but I had a
Like a good
girlfriend many
story.
years ago, and we just happened to be at this garden wedding, and this woman then just moved in front of us. She was shorter than us, and we're not necessarily tall, but she had a backless dress on, and
Oh
that's
no.
fine that she had a backless dress on, but there was this huge mole on her back. And I'm just starting to giggle because I'm thinking, why would a woman with a big mole on her back wear a backless dress? So I grabbed my girlfriend and just moved her in front of me. So I tried not to look at it, and she's looking up at me, going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then she looks and she sees it, and then she's got the giggles as well, and the priest is there, you know, obviously some people are happy to be here making reference to us, and we try to bite our tongues. Oh, wasn't it? Yeah, it was
Mhm.
funny. It was funny.
Oh dear. So I think I asked you about the getting published in America. But then that obviously that publisher, you've moved from them to somebody else and then somebody else.
Oh, okay. So that first publisher, when I was at the Writers Festival in New Orleans, while I was there, they dropped me, and I was thinking, here I am promoting a book that has just dropped off the market, and it threw me a lot. It's like, who does that? I've spent the money to go from Sydney to New Orleans, New Orleans. You know, who does that? Now the funny thing is, I remember getting an email from another author with that publisher saying, I want to dissolve my contract. How did you do it? It's like, I didn't do it purposely, but
Hmm.
start chasing up your royalties. That will do it, because that's what I used to have to do a lot. Because the guy was, but I'd remind him, isn't it royalty time? Oh, I haven't gotten around to it. I must do it now.
Oh, man.
And I was on his, every, so somehow I think that may have had something to do with it, because it definitely helped another author dissolve themselves from that publisher. Um, but my now there were now let me try and remember what happened next. I found this other publisher who was going to publish the sequel to my first novel. The original publisher wasn't interested in it, but there was this new publisher that only published books with a gay male protagonist. They were called Wild City Press, and Wild spelled as Oscar Wilde. And they were terrific, and and suddenly I was able to approach them. Look, I know you're publishing the sequel. If you want the first in the series, it's now just become available. So they got it ready to publish. And then sadly, that publisher folded. But my editor there at the time, Jason, happened to be working for this new queer publisher called Nine Star Press, and pretty much brought me over to Nine Star Press. So my old books and new stuff I was writing, yeah, ended up there.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
How did you get started with writing? Like, where did it all begin?
As a kid, I used to write stories all the time, and I used to make, staple cardboard and paper together and make little pretend books. And then in grade six, we used our teacher would staple, a few sheets of paper, cardboard, and for creative writing, we'd make up our own covers and write our own little teensy weensy 8-page novels, or 16-page novels or whatever we're doing. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, and then when we finished one, we put it on the ledge of the blackboard, and our fellow school friends would read them. But mine became really popular. As soon as I put one out, if someone had finished their work, they'd just run at it and read it. So
That's
many years
fantastic.
later, yeah. So I didn't with my first novel, Drama Queens with Love Scenes. I started writing that a long, long, long time ago, and I put it away. And then it was in 2005, and I know 2005 specifically because we met this new friend. He's been a good friend of ours now for ages. He's in his mid-40s now, but then he was 29. And my now husband, Warren, snuck out, like it was a handwritten novel I had started writing, and snuck it out to this friend, Brett. And then Brett came back and said, Kevin, you've got to finish this. I love this. So that's when the real journey began for me. And the other thing for me, okay, I just turned 59. And so my first novel was published 11 years ago. I was still working, but in my mind, and I'm retired now, this is what I wanted to set up for myself once I retired. And the other thing that you were talking about before, a little while back, I did a long time ago, probably a good 10 years ago, I did a workshop at the Sydney Writers Festival with a published author. Sadly, I don't remember who she was or her name, but I looked at the notes I wrote in the last few years and saw something that I wrote and went, I should have taken note of that a long time ago. And it basically said, acquisition editors are looking for something they could market. So when you're writing something, think about something that's marketable. And I look back at, like I said, my first novel, Drama Queens with Love Scenes, People in the District of the Afterlife. And that's kind of the book. They say write the book you want to write. That's my book I wanted to write. Problem is, it's a hard sell, and I spent many years really promoting it, selling it, finding an angle to sell it with. So I've learned in more recent times, and probably another reason I've let go of the space opera for the moment. Hopefully one day there'll be a reason for me to write it. But it's why I look at going, okay, the Midnight Man. A man meets a dream lover, the man of his dreams, literally in his dreams. Even though, like I said before, it's not really about a romance, it's about the disintegration of his real life relationship and him coming to terms with being middle-aged. That's the themes I want to explore, but I don't put that in my marketing so much. I put the idea that he's met a younger man in his dreams who gives him the chance to be 5 years younger each time they meet up in his dreams. That's a marketable prospect. And even Tin Men and Scarecrows, which I'm writing at the moment. It's about an older woman who's 66 named Dorothy, who happens to meet three younger gay guys. One of them's in the closet, one of them's a himbo, and one of them's a bit of a bitch. So you can see heart, head, courage. And even though it's a contemporary novel, it one's not running around in a lion suit or anything like that. It's an easier sell to a potential publisher. And there's an American gay author named Rick R. Reed, who I've noticed this is the way he writes his books. He thinks of a marketable option, and that's the way I've had to learn to think of what I'm writing and why I'm writing. And like I said, when that reviewer who loved my work didn't like Virtual Insanity, I'm thinking I still sell a lot of books to Americans. I'm starting to increase my Australian readership, but I also have to be aware of, at the moment, I'm not really known for those dystopian novels or science fiction. Urban fantasy or fantasy, yes, but not that. So I have to take an audience with me then, rather doing, I want to write this. You just come with me.
So okay, so let's dream a little bit. Okay, so you're writing this. Well, I love a reimagining of Wizard of Oz. Fantastic, love it. I love everything about what you said. You're writing this book. This book's coming out. It's going to be good, and I want to read it because it sounds fantastic. How do you get from this book? How do you take the readers? How do you take me, your reader, from that book to the space opera? What do you like? Draw the steps.
That's a problem. That's my problem. There is no way to do it.
You don't think so?
So in a folder, look. No, the only way I can do it is to find a different publisher to the one I have now. Even though my publisher would publish it, I'd look for a different publisher whose main goal is your science fiction, and try to get it with a publisher, because straight away their audience is looking for those books, and it's a way, instead of me trying to break through to, like I said, that blogger who hasn't helped me at all.
Him problem. Or a them problem. You didn't say if
it's a him problem, but
it's not a you problem.
But it's a reality. Look. To give you another example, there's a publisher called Rebel Satori who have an imprint that focuses on books written by gay males for a gay male readership. Now, most of my readers are women. Because of the type of books I write, most of most readers are women to start with. But if I wanted to say even get this space opera up and running with a publisher that were better for it, maybe Rebel Satori, but maybe that's more for a contemporary novel featuring gay characters. I have seen publishers that concentrate on science fiction, smaller publishers, and that's where I'd pitch to, because at least their newsreader is going into the inbox of people who are looking for that content. That's how I do it. That
makes sense. That sounds like a good marketing. Not nearly as romantic as slowly introducing like science fiction elements until they're just like there.
But the sad, and then again I'm going back to the sad fact is, because I've done this for, I've got 11 years of hindsight, and I know what I know that I'm not, like, if I was a big name, yes, I could do whatever I wanted, but I'm not there. And again, like I said, I could write that space opera, but I know that space opera with my current publisher wouldn't work as well as it would finding another publisher who really focus on science fiction and already have eagerly waiting readers checking their inbox for their latest releases. And that's the way you've got to think about it. You've got to start thinking about who you're writing for. And like I said, the other interesting thing at the moment is, you know, I'm starting to gain an Australian readership, and of course they read things differently, which is probably why I'm going for more something like Tin Men and Scarecrows, because it's a way to take new Australian readers with me, because it's more of an Australian book. It's still a marketable prospect in America. It's a marketable prospect because my other work in progress, which has a great title, which I'm not sharing because I don't want it to be stolen, but it was something someone once said, and I went, great title for a book. I don't know what book yet, but that's going to be the title of one of my books. But it's a book that's I've actually written 7 or 8 drafts of, and it goes back up when my husband Warren and I first met in 1990. We were in Sydney through the whole, drug rave scene, Oxford Street being alive, a different dance
I was still
party,
in Ontario,
almost every week.
so
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. Whereas, whereas,
I
whereas
didn't
we,
know about
whereas
it.
we had, yeah, whereas we had the whole, ecstasy being the biggest drug, and that was our courting years. So I've written a book set in the 90s around that culture. Um, More recently, I had it professionally assessed, and I'm dying to get back to it because, as a follow-up book, let's say Tin Men and Scarecrows gains me a bigger audience than I have now, then that's the perfect book to follow up with, not a space opera. And I'm dying to restructure it
Okay.
according publisher goes, how do we market this? How do we and it's the truth of it. Like we don't want to think of it as a business, but in some ways we have to think of those commercial. Yeah, and I've just like I said, I've learned this because of you know the people who've read the dystopian novels love them, but I have a smaller audience for those than I have for my other work, and you just
Fair.
have to face that. One day I hope to write that space opera
Mhm.
but I have to be a bloody big seller, or I find a publisher who specializes in those works and wants to publish them.
Look, I just saw the time, and we haven't even talked about
Yeah,
the fact that one of your books was stuck in it was put into the AI to teach the AI.
yeah.
Like that, like, oh my goodness. Which one?
So, so Drama Queens with Love Scenes, and I know I that's a book that had been pirated. I can't remember how long ago it was pirated, not through my current publisher, but it had a long time ago. I was reading on this pirated comments board for people looking for certain books to be pirated. It just came up in the Google alerts, and someone wanted to read Drama Queens with Love Scenes without paying for it. And they were defending, like they were certainly, they were saying, I'm dying. And part of me thought, I'd love to get in contact with them and send them a print edition, so they can't then send it, because I'm honoured that they want to read it so much, but they don't want to pay for it. And I thought, but then would they go and photocopy every page and PDF it and put it, but it had been pirated. So on Facebook, probably a few weeks ago, an American author friend just wrote this post saying, I checked and I'm not one of the 183,000. Um, and that's all they wrote. And people were saying, what are you talking about? And then he uh, linked to an article in The Atlantic. And basically, 183,000 books without the author's permission have been fed into an AI program called Book 3 so that Book 3 can learn how to write books. And the journalist who discovered this also was able to get hack into this data. I don't know if they hacked into it, but they found this database that showed every book. Now, I didn't expect one of my books to be on there. But as I was reading, because it's in the indie publishing world, still a mix of self-published and traditionally published small publishers,
Stephen King
and I
was one of
noticed
them, wasn't it?
some of them are saying, sorry,
Stephen King was. Didn't they steal
some.
Stephen King's work?
Oh yeah, oh, yes. So that's what. But some of these smaller authors like me were saying, oh yeah,
Hmm.
they've got two of mine or whatever. So I went and checked this database,
Hmm.
wrote in my name, and sure enough, Drama Queens with Love Scenes came up. Now I've written to the Australian Society of Authors, but I've written the Guardian article. Lots of people have written to them, so I keep trying to chase up what's happening. I think there is a court case happening in the US, but I'm an Australian author published by US publishers. I'm not quite sure how that works and what will eventuate. But of course, I wasn't pleased because, none of us gave, Stephen King's works, huge Australian authors never gave permission, but this AI has been learning how to write books through our works.
It's
So I'm just
insane.
waiting to see what eventuates and what follows up. Yeah.
Does your publisher have any kind of insights into what might eventuate?
I haven't asked, I haven't contacted them about it because I think, not that they wouldn't care, but to me, I'm just keeping an eye on other places because they're a small publisher. If they were a
Mm.
large publisher, yeah,
Hmm.
then it's something that's worth looking into. But
Hmm.
as my publisher is small, I'm just keeping abreast of articles and new news stories to see what's actually going on, and hopefully, maybe someone will get back to me and say, "Hey, you're obviously part of this legal challenge or
Hmm.
whatever." You know,
So what were your like take you go there, you don't really think you're going to find yourself, you find yourself, what's your initial reaction?
oh, I was annoyed. And the interesting thing is, I then wrote the name of some other well-known authors and went, "Oh, they haven't been, they haven't been, they haven't been," and I was, and and I was annoyed. I put up a post where I was half joking about it, and another author friend of mine sort of said, it's fine that you're making light of this, but a lot of author friends that I know are very angry about this, and I had to write back and say, I am angry. Trust me, I am angry about this. Um, I'm just trying to make because what I wrote in the post was, what a shame they didn't, take one of my more recent books because I'm a better writer now. Why did they take my debut novel? I was just joking about it,
Yeah.
but I had to clarify. No, I am angry about it. I'm not
Mhm.
happy, Jan, at all.
A whole mix of feelings. Like I would feel like, like you said, you put in other names and it wasn't them. They it was you, so it's like um I was recently looking at some historical stuff about comic books. So
Yeah,
there's sort of an era where comic book art was getting quite good, and it was around the 60s when, and then there was some pop artists who famously took the images of comic books and painted them larger and then sold them as their own work.
yeah,
And one of the artists involved, they were interviewing them like in retrospect. So at first we're like kind of flattered, like, this is cool. Like somebody's like gone through our comic books and found this beautiful image. And then we're like really angry because somebody's like telling like for like $3,000 or more, like some of these works are recognizable and famous today. These beautiful images blown up and they're from like Lonely Hearts comics from the 60s.
yeah,
The crying woman in the water, the drowning woman, that
yeah.
image.
I know it.
It,
I know it.
yeah,
I know it. I know
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. It's a beautiful piece, but it's
Look,
it's literally a panel in a comic book that he just painted bigger and
look.
like made himself a name.
I didn't get the flattery aspect when other authors with the same publisher, they were making jokes. Oh, I'm just not good enough to be, to be used for it. And I said, look, to me, because I knew the book had been pirated, it was easy to get. To me, I mean, maybe there was a decision and a choice, but when you hear 183,000 books, you kind of think, no, there wasn't any thought to what they could get their hands on. And so I never for one moment, and I even told a friend over dinner the other day, and they were even saying, oh, they probably wanted your book because blah, blah. I said, no. That particular book's been pirated. They would have been able to find it and just shove it in there. So I'm not under the illusion of, oh, they love my work. Oh, wow. No, I know
There's
how
no
they got it and why
flattery.
it's in there.
No flattery. It is simply theft and not cool. And
A
it's
copyright
also
breach.
and also not cool in the sense that that what they're trying to do is create an AI to write books. Like
Yeah.
it's not to like better mankind or help us work better or anything like this. Like some of the
Be
other AIs that
creative.
have come
Yeah.
out this year. It's literally
And in
to write books to get rid of the writers.
George Orwell's 1984, that's exactly what happens. A machine writes novels.
Mm-hmm.
And my book has been used to do exactly what none of us want to see happen. And the idea that um, AI could possibly write a book in my style, just my early style, not my more refined, better writer style of my more recent books. But which is why I made a joke of it. But just the idea that somewhere you could ask this AI, write a Kevin Klehr novel, and it would be able to write one.
No, I don't
And
think
no
so. I
one
was
wants
talking
that.
to an
Yeah.
editor um, from the United States called Erica Green, and the question that had been left from the previous author just to her was, "What about AI? You worried? What's going on?" She said, um,
Yeah.
"We are light years away from it actually being able to do anything. Like it can only regurgitate, and it can't do what humans can do, which is be human and be creative
Yeah.
and so even if it can kind of like get the patterns or what have you, it's only regurgitating. It could never write like you. It can't learn like you.
But the other thing that's worth noting was when the Sydney Writers' Festival used to be down at the Wharf, and they had representatives on the panels from major publishers, and the first question that was asked of them was, "How worried are you about self-publishing?" Two of them, it's not gonna eat into our mark. The third one went, "No, we're really concerned about it. We're really looking at this eating into our profits." Um, you know, and that's the way I kind of feel. Like, what AI is now may not. What we think it may be in 10 years, may be just 1 year away. And the only reason I'm saying that is, um, okay, my novel Social Media Central, the actual twist actually happened in real life before that book was released. And I wrote that book thinking this is where social media, and then when the whole Cambridge Analytica thing came out of, people in Russia pretending to be Americans influencing the election which Trump won. Not that that's exactly my twist, but it is based on actors pretending to be your friends on social media, actually being on video in fake lounge rooms and bedrooms, and dressing to look the part, to influence you to do what the government wants you to do. And And, again, I was thinking it's not going to happen until 2064 because that's when the book's set. And sure enough, I'm watching these Russians being interviewed talking about pretending to be housewives in, middle America influencing. And I just go, so what AI is doing now, the world is changing so fast. I don't think it'll be that far away where they'll be able to, you know, think for themselves and analyze in a way
Possibly.
that's
I think though that what we'll see is return to, like, you think about, like, how quickly we can make stuff now, yet people are going to the store and looking for handmade or small
yeah,
batch or all natural or that sort of thing. And it'll be the same with books. So
yeah,
people will be looking for um, like, maybe the big publishers, they'll be like just like pumping out computers, but I feel like because we got self-published stuff first, people will want, this was written by a real person, you know? Like, this was a
yeah.
handmade book.
I guess you're right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know what
Even
I mean?
someone else on Ozrights talked about how in his latest book it actually stipulates this was not written by AI. So yeah, there's no market for an AI book. I guess you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
I mean,
I can
you
breathe
might get
easy now.
the thing, like, so I obviously I'm on YouTube and I do a lot on there, and there was when the AI came out, there was all these videos about AI tools to use for your videos.
Book.
You can have what, like,
Yeah, yeah,
somebody, you can have a computer voice that will narrate it. You can have a computer write your script. You can have all these things, and it did not last long. And
yeah.
like, even
Love
this
love the
program that I'm using, this
colorization of
AI
classic
program,
movies.
yeah,
What you
this
know
program I'm
that
using will edit this video for me, but I won't use that. I won't just like use that edit. I will put the work in, because it's better when I use my brain to know, where to focus on you slowly, or where to, like, and create the emotion or that sort of thing. But it will do all
yeah,
that for me and just create a show, and I could, like, just click a button and be done. But it won't be as good. It won't be as enjoyable to watch, and I know that. So I'll put the time in. And we're using our real voices. um,
yeah. True.
I appreciate that. I'm
I
not
can breathe
scared.
easy now. Thanks, Joe.
Yes,
Yeah.
look, I'm just me, but I'm not scared, and I think that you will not be in competition with some computer program.
Before we get to the questions, Kevin, I gotta know, tell everybody, where can they find you? Where can they read these great books that cannot be copied by AI?
I don't have a new book coming out shortly that I have to spruik or anything, but there's definitely a
Okay.
back catalogue there and one audio book which is voiced by a beautiful British actor with Shakespearean experience to listen to. So yeah, yeah.
Is that available on
Check out my
Audible?
back catalogue. There's a lot of stuff there. Audible and Apple Books, yeah.
Fantastic.
Just to let you know, my publisher uses Ingram Spark, so all my work is through everything. So whether you
Hopefully.
click on Booktopia online or if you're in America going to Barnes and Noble or Smashwords or whatever, all my work is available in pretty much anywhere you can buy online.
Fantastic. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Um,
Okay.
I actually grabbed Craig's question. Let's see if I can play it.
The problem with writing is that it's very dependent on like current modes and fashions, and it always interests me to sort of see something that's coming out now and having someone claim that it's new when it's actually, it's got all these forebears, it's got all these roots that go back, into like over almost sometimes 7,000 years. So I'd like to ask the next person, is like, do you know your antecedents? How tuned in are you to the things that have gone before? and how do you make that fresh in your own writing?
That's a really good question. No, no. It's interesting. I can actually give an answer to that.
Fantastic.
My yeah. Look, my reading is varied because I think if you're a writer, you read your friends' indie works, you read major commercial fiction that's selling, you read uh, classics. But in this regard, when I wrote my dystopian books, I had read War of the Worlds when I was a kid, and I loved Orwell's 1984. But I then went on to read Animal Farm and Fahrenheit 541 or 451. Always get the numbers mixed up. And I
Right.
tried to read Brave New World, even though the TV version was fantastic, but the book just. But basically, I was writing dystopian, and I read a couple of others, The Giver. I had to understand that genre, and so and I've done that before. When I was writing something that needed a romantic element or whatever, I would read a romance or whatever, and I do that sometimes. But something happened. I was approached by uh, Ben Shepherd, and he's got this fabulous website, which I will bring up in a moment, so I know what it is. It's a website called Shepherd, shepherd.com. And what it is, it's a whole bunch of authors who give 5 recommendations based on a theme. Now, Ben approached me originally, and he had Social Media Central in mind. I assume maybe he read the book, or I know he's a science fiction lover, or maybe he was just looking for people who'd written science fiction, and he wanted me to recommend 5 science fiction books. Because I don't consider myself an expert in science fiction books, but this was a big deal. This is a great way to be seen. It's like, well, I'm going to really maybe lose this offer, and I'm going to ask him if instead I can write an article that recommends the best gay-themed books not I have read. I'm more interested in gay fiction than I am in gay romance.
Yeah.
And I waited. I was thinking I could lose this really cool offer to be part of this website. But fortunately, he came back and he allowed me to do that. And I think that's the thing. When it came to dystopian, I had to read up. When it comes to the other sorts of things I write, because my favourite genre is just contemporary fiction set now. They're my favourite books, even though a lot of my books have urban fiction, urban fantasy elements. Those urban fantasy elements are there to make the themes of the book more clearer and what it means to be, whether I'm talking about what it means to age or what it means to come to terms you're in an abusive relationship or, whatever I'm exploring, unrequited love. I've in the past used fantasy elements in there to help highlight those themes. So I think to answer the question, I do research a new genre if I'm writing that new genre. But because I read widely, like any author should, I'm aware of, seeing, ideas repeated, stories used before, or totally fresh ideas and how to make an old idea new. So, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer to the question. Have you ever written something and then thought it was like a brand new idea and then picked up an old book and went, "Oh, I actually saw that before." You ever done that?
Not as yet. I did strangely, I did that with a short film I once shot. The opening scene, um, the opening scene was an idea I knew I'd seen before, but I didn't know where. And then I started thinking maybe I hadn't seen it before, and it is a fresh idea. And then several years later, my younger sister saw it and went, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before." It's like, "Oh, okay." It wasn't a fresh idea after all. It was something
Oh,
I actually copied from somewhere else, but I don't know. Um, um, but that's the only time I've done it, just in a short film. I haven't really done it in a novel.
I asked Craig because we were talking a lot about originality, and because
Yeah,
he's a writer and but he's also a bookseller, and he deals in collectibles. And I said, well, why are we collecting all these old things? Like in 50, 100 years, are they going to be collecting the books we're writing now? And how can we write those kinds of books if we're just copying, if we're just carbon copies of what came before? And he said he thinks what it is if you bring yourself to it, if you actually like not like insert yourself into the
yeah, I know what you're
story. You don't
saying.
have to have a character called Kevin, but if you like insert who you are into it. And I
Although
think
I've
this
done
goes
that.
back to what we were talking
Yeah,
about with
yeah,
AI. AI can't do that. It can't take a unique human being, which is the one thing that is really
yeah,
remarkable about life. Whether or not you believe all animals are unique as well.
yeah,
I
yeah,
certainly think my cats are not alike, but if you insert your self into it, then even if it has, like that beginning of your film, even if it has sort of an inspiration of that other work, if you're creating it honestly from yourself, then it's going to be something new. It's got to be because you're new. You're a new person. You're not the same as the other person before.
and a lot of people are using Gwen Hayes's four-act structure for writing a romance, and all of them are completely different. You know,
Exactly.
so so yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
think it's quite as hopeless. At least I'm choosing to believe that because I've been going through a bit of a mid-edit crisis where I feel like everything I write is derivative. I don't know if you do that, but it's like when I'm editing a book, I'm like, I suck. It's like just like everybody else's.
No, no, no. You know, what the best advice, the person at the Writers' Festival who taught me about think of marketable ideas gave me the best advice for editing. Now, when I sit down to write, no matter if it's a first draft or whatever draft it is I'm going over, I reread the last scene or scenes I've written, and so it helps me. It helps me by rereading it and reacquainting myself with the last scene I've read. It also helps me with flow into the next chapter, so that it's easier for the reader. But the thing she said, which I've lived by for it has been my pre-COVID way I work is she said, when you finish a draft, do not look at it again for 3 months.
Wow.
Then back then, she said, print it in a font you've never seen it before, and have your red pen handy, and you'll see where characters are underdeveloped or you over explaining something or whatever. And she said, you go through that process, rework that next draft, then put that away for 3 months. And that used to be my process because I used to have at least three works in progress at any one time. One early stage development, probably one in mid development, and one that wasn't far away from submitting to my editor, who then says yay or nay to for publishing it with my publisher.
Hmm.
And what I found is I could then have a book come out every year, but that book has been worked on for several years. And basically, when I get to a draft where I'm virtually changing nothing, just making a few minor changes, not major restructures of scenes or whatever, then that book is ready to send off to try to get published. And that's
Wow.
the way I used to work before COVID. It's the way yeah, yeah. And
So
it's a
how
good
did
way to
Toby
work
change
because
it?
that's when because it stops you overthinking. You will always overthink if you're too close to it. And something my mum brought me up to do, she used to say when I used to struggle with something, even with homework, she said, put it away. Come and have dinner. Look at it later tonight, look at it tomorrow morning, and it'll be clear. And she was always right. She was always right. And if you're too close to something, not only do you not see its flaws, you assume it has flaws it doesn't have. And that's why you need that. And now, of course, with technology, I PDF it in a font I've never seen it before. And, put it
Yeah.
in my tablet, and I've got the pen, the stylus, and make all the changes, and then bring the PDF
Oh, we're so
back to
fancy.
my laptop and compare.
Fantastic. Do you have a question for our next person?
Yes, I do. How personal is your work?
That's a good
That's all it has
question.
to be. Yeah, yeah. How much of yourself do you put into your work?
That's a
Real
great
life
question.
anecdotes, things people have said,
How about you?
philosophies
How
that
much
other
do you
people
put
have
in?
come up with. Sorry? Oh, a lot.
Huh. Yeah.
A lot. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, um, the Actors and Angels series, Drama Queens with Love Scenes, Drama Queens and Adult Themes, and Drama Queens and Devilish Schemes, are all loosely based on me and my husband for the past 33 years. Our names have changed. There are changes to the storylines, but there are
You're not
ways
dead.
we communicate. Exactly, and even the second book focuses on a real life situation we found ourselves in. The third book is totally fictional. It looks at the relationship coming to the brink of breaking up. But I do it all the time. Any clever things people say, I record or write down and use them as one-liners or philosophies or whatever. My current 10-minute Scarecrows has a lot of very personal anecdotes in it. There's at one stage, after I was made redundant um, from a play, or my whole department was made redundant, for a year I just did extras work, and there's a couple of stories because two of the characters that do extras work of things that actually happened, and at my writers group when I went, surely there wasn't someone that starstruck that they thought they were good enough to be, to ask the agency only to send them to gigs where only a small amount of people go because he wants to be discovered. It's like, yep, that happened, and he was there, and in the real thing, like it was just a photo shoot, and we had to like barrack for a sports team, and he'd go like, and the photographer said, "Oh, you look like an opera singer." I said, "Oh, how did you know?" So what? No, what? I am an opera singer, and the photographer's going, "It has nothing to do with what we're talking about." And my writer's group is saying, "Surely not." And I said, "No, that person existed. I was there. We're all like cringing, and he did this and he did that." So a lot of personal stuff goes into my work because I think that's the only way to make it fresh, to make it sound and feel like no one else's work.
What does your husband think about being immortalized in your books?
Oh, he has given me full, full permission to use anything from our lives in my books. And because a lot of my books do have a love story element in them, that's where I take it from. Or with
Yeah,
my
of course.
current work, I'm taking something from two friends that I think should have gotten back together but never did, and I look at them and go, still, you're missing out on years where you could have strengthened this relationship, but so I've written that to my current work, you know.
What do you think this opera singer would think if he read that scene?
Oh, I don't. I think it'd be too delusional to work out it's him because the other thing, I know it's a spoiler in this scene, but the other thing he then went and did, he then went and asked the makeup team, "Where's this going to be shown?" And they're going, "Well, ask the the producer, like we can work out who's in charge here." So he goes
Mhm.
over, "Oh, where's this going to be shown?" And she replies, "It's for a billboard. It's it's still photography. It's obviously still photography. It's for a billboard." You can see her frustration, and he's going, "Oh, I guess I'll see it on YouTube then." So I've written that into the scene, and that's why my writer script's like, "Surely not. Surely this." I said, "No, it happened. It happened." You know, you know,
I love it.
and
I
I've used
love
that
it.
scene.
Fantastic. Um, so I think we've covered it a little bit, but I know we'll put everything in the show notes, but is there anything else you want to say where people can find your stuff? Obviously, on your website, and you're on all
Yeah,
socials.
look, at the moment I'm still on Twitter, but I'm looking at what's going on there and going, what the hell? I've just opened a Blue Sky account. I've got a TikTok account. Um, um, I've got a Facebook account, but not an author Facebook account anymore. I mean, you'll find one, but I don't post anything to it anymore because it was quite an unsuccessful platform. And I don't have an Instagram anymore because it got hacked.
Oh,
But it was also my least successful platform, so I don't really use that. But basically, my website, Kevin, KLEHR.com is my website. There's blogs there. All my books are there. Every book has its own separate page that links you to an excerpt and to reviews. Yeah.
cool.
I've got a few little short reads there if you want to get an idea of other, short
Yeah, I
stories
saw you
I've
got a
written.
free you got a free short story I saw. That's very generous.
Yes, yes, yes. You can only get it if you sign up to my newsletter,
Naughty sneaky.
but it is a short story that's actually in another anthology, but it became available contractually now, and I asked their permission if I could also put it
Hmm.
separately as a freebie, so it's there.
Fantastic.
So, Kevin, have you got a question for our next guest?
Oh yes, okay. You want me to now? Let's do it.